Hi, welcome. I am doing another deck profile, I know. I'm spoiling you, especially since this is 2 out of 3. Oh yes, that's another one. But for now, we are focusing on... I like to call it this, but I feel like it's probably not the most appropriate name for it. I like to call it the stereotypical SJW deck. Like, I'm leftist, but you know what it was like back in 2016. If someone had dyed hair, the internet was running after them, thinking that they hated the patriarchy just because they wanted to change their hair color. It was a weird time. But yeah, so I do call it that just as a sort of fun little nod at how stupid people can be. That they had dyed hair. But yeah, it's Obeka, Splitter of Seconds. It is a deck that cares about upkeeps. So what she does herself is, if she hits you, she deal damage to you. And then for each damage you take from her, specifically from that attack, I will get upkeeps after the combat step. So, for example, she is a 2/5 to begin with Menace. Emphasis on to begin with, we'll go into it. And so if she hits just in base, she'll give me 2 extra upkeeps, so 3 upkeeps a turn, basically. Now, why would I care about upkeeps? Well, Jimmy, let's go into this, shall we? I am going to go into all of the cards that care about upkeeps. And then after we're done with all the cards that care about upkeeps, let me just grab all of these. We'll go into the cards that help with attacking. And then we'll go into the... Yeah, we've got sections. This is all the upkeep stuff. So let's make a start. Talking of upkeeps, let's create even more with the Ninth Doctor. If he's tapped and untaps during my untap, I get another upkeep. And in fact, it's not even during untap step. Any time, if I can find a way to just keep tapping and untapping, that's infinite upkeeps. Genuinely, that is infinite upkeeps. So I might start running stuff like that in there, but for now I haven't. Next we have things that care about upkeeps. So we have Initiative off of Caves of Chaos Adventurer. So I will get the initiative if it ever enters the battlefield. And whenever it attacks, I exile the top card of my library. If I've completed a dungeon, again, initiative upkeeps, it's going to happen. I may play that card this turn without paying its mana cost. Otherwise, I may play it for its mana cost. So I either play it for its mana cost or I get it for free. Free is if I do go through the whole initiative. Talking of initiative, I'm pretty sure this is the other one, yeah? Yeah, we have Real Surreal Kingpin. We get more initiative, and whenever I attack, target attacking creature gains Death Touch until the end of turn. If I've completed a dungeon, this creature also gets +5/+0 and gains First Strike and Menace until end of turn. Very good. I'll be honest with you, I'm going to have to reread these cards because I built it a while ago. I want to say I built this deck about a month and a half ago, and I don't play it that often. I enjoy it. It is a fun deck. I just don't play it as often because the deck profile that you saw before this one, which is the Urza one, I have been playing a lot just because I've been very interested in artifacts, and finally getting a artifact deck like that has been extremely fun, but I am hoping to pick this up a bit more when I go to Friday night. Next for upkeeps is Xanathar, Guild Kingpin. Every upkeep I get to choose a player. They cannot cast spells during this turn. I get to cast the top card of their library every turn for this turn. With multiple upkeeps that turn, I can choose all of my opponents. Let's see. Then we have Laughing Jasper Flint. Creatures I control but don't own are mercenaries in addition. And at the beginning of my upkeep, exile the top X cards of an opponent's library, where X is the number of outlaws I control. And until the end of turn, I may cast spells from amongst those cards, and mana of any type can be used for it. Sorry, I was reading it upside down. But yeah, so basically I just go, right, boom. Bear in mind, Warlock is a outlaw type, so having him and Obeka out on its own is 2. And then there's other ones that just so happen to be under the outlaw type. It's great. Chronozoa, vanishing free, so it loses a time counter every upkeep. And and it is a 3/3 of flying, and if it ever dies, if it has no time counters on it whatsoever, it will make 2 token copies of itself, which will obviously come in with Vanishing 3. So this basically goes, right, I'm going to kill myself with no counters and keep doing that until I have 30 of the things. Which again, with a lot of upkeeps, this is Scoot Swarm for upkeeps. Then we have Braids, Conjurer Adept. Every upkeep, we put a card from our hand onto the field for free. I'm getting a bunch of upkeeps, you guys get one, so it's a bit of group hug, but it's mostly I'm taking advantage of that. Then every upkeep, I get a 5/5 dragon if I have 6 or more lands. This almost won me a game once. But unfortunately, the person I signed out just gave it -1/-1. I was like, oh, that's sad. Then we have Magmatic Force. That just says at the beginning of my upkeep, it deals 3 damage to target creature or player. Just simple burn. Once a turn, 3 damage. Oh wait, Obeka hit for 10. Oh no. Then we have Sphinx of the Second Sun. Basically, it gives me a free upkeep. It also gives me an untap, which is very nice. So we get the lands, etc. We have Jesus Christ, hang on. A Plaga Nasari. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player exiles top cards of their library until they exile a non-land. The opponent chooses a non-land exiled this way. I may cast up to 2 spells from among other cards exiled this way without paying their mana cost. So I'll just go, right, Steve, you get to pick, but out of those 4 cards, there was a Brilliant Ultimatum, there was a Ruinous Ultimatum, there was a Progenitor, so I don't know why they had that in their deck, and also I've got a 9th Doctor. Choose wisely. Then we have a Tomb of Horrors Adventurer. Guess what happens when it enters? The initiative! Yay! And then whenever I cast my second spell each turn, copy it. If I've completed a dungeon, copy it again. You may choose new targets for each of the copies. Yay. Also, do you know what's very fun about upkeep? Cumulative upkeep. How about a cumulative upkeep where I steal your lands? And then, if I run out of lands to steal, it dies, because I can't pay its cumulative upkeep, but after 5 upkeeps with Obeka, that gets really disgusting really quickly. I'll take that utility land, I'll take that utility land. You need green, and you only have 1 green source, so I'll take that green source. It gets very disgusting. Then we have a dual-sided, but you mostly play it on the blue side, which is a Vilda, Dean of Perfection, which basically suspends sorcery and instances, and then you get to like go into them again. Kind of nice. And that's it for the creatures that care about upkeeps or create more upkeeps, right? Now we're going into the enchantments that do that shit. And what's the best type of enchantment that do the upkeep shenanigans? How about the courts, which we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of. We have Court of Antris, which will basically create us a copy of an enchantment or artifact. And if we are the monarch, we can do it with just make a straight up copy. If we're not the monarch, Court of Vantris becomes that copy. Then we have Court of Ambition, that just says, hey, at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 3 life unless they discard a card. If I am the monarch, they instead will lose 6 life if they discard 2 cards. Again, multiple upkeeps, and because I'm trying to make Obeka hit every time, I'm most likely going to be able to steal the monarch. Court of Cunning. Hey, do you want to mill 2 on my upkeep? How about milling 10 if I'm the monarch on my upkeep? Or how about Court of Embereth that says, hey, at the beginning of my turn I create a 3/1. Then if I'm the monarch, I actually deal X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of creatures I control. Or we could go with Court of Ire, which is at the beginning of my upkeep, Court of Ire will deal 2 damage to any target. But if I'm the monarch, it deals 7. Or what about Court of Lochwain, which says at the beginning of my upkeep, I'll exile the top card of target opponent's library. I may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. And Then, if I happen to be the monarch, I can cast it for free. Yeah, it's great. The courts are kind of busted in an Obeka deck, which is why I'm running as many of them that seemed good. Then we go into the other enchantments like Descend into Avernus, which will burn us for a lot of damage, but also give us a bunch of treasure to use. Or how about Legacies of Lore? I get to steal your creature. Because it gets a counter for every upkeep, and then I can sack it and grab any creature whose is it power and toughness or their mana cost? Their power is no greater than the number of treasure counters on it. So if it has 10 treasure counters, I can still steal your Void Winnower. We have Cormoner's Awakening, which is Ascend. So if I have 10 or more permanents, I get the Blessing. At the beginning of my upkeep, every player will draw a card. However, if I have City's Blessing, only I draw a card every upkeep. Here's a win con. Mechanized Production. Enchant an artifact. If I have 8 or more of those artifacts on my upkeep, I win, and I create a copy of that artifact every upkeep. So if I equip it to, say, I don't know, a treasure token off of Descent to Avernus, 2 upkeeps later I win, which is very easy with Obeka. Or I can equip it to a different type of token that we'll go over later. But artifacts are very good. Endless Evil. Every upkeep, make a 1/1 version of a creature on the board. Again, if I get multiple upkeeps, I just get multiple 1/1s of multiple good creatures that I have. As Foretold, gets a counter on it every upkeep. I can cast cards once per turn for 0 rather than its mana cost if its mana cost is X or less, which is the amount of counters on it. So 5 upkeeps later, I can cast 5 or less spells for free once per turn. We have Stolen Strategy, that just says at the beginning of my upkeep, I exile the top card of each opponent's library. Until the end of turn, I may cast spells from among those exiled cards, and I may spend mana as if I just keep stealing. This feels like a Gonti deck. Mind Unbound, it gets a counter on it every upkeep. I draw equal to the amount of counters on it. So I draw 1 card, then I draw 2 cards, then I draw 3 cards, then I draw 4 cards. It is insane. We get an additional upkeep with Paradox Haze, because Enchanted Player gets an additional upkeep. Obviously I'm targeting myself. When Loot Dispute enters the battlefield, I may create a treasure token. Whenever I attack the player who has them initiative, create a treasure token. Whenever I complete a dungeon, I may create a 5/5 red dragon. Inevitable Betrayal. It is a suspend card. Search your opponent's library for any creature and put onto the battlefield on my turn. On my, again, 3 upkeeps. I play this for free for it. Well, pay 2 mana, 3 mana for it to suspend 3 it. Normally that's still very good, but I can do that like turn 2. Isn't that great? Inspiring Refrain. Suspend for 3 mana. And I get to draw 3 cards basically every turn. My favourite card that cares about the upkeep. Eternal Dominion. Now Eternal Dominion has the ability of search target opponent's library for an artifact, creature, enchantment or land and put it onto the battlefield under my control. Their player then shuffles their library. It's a 10 mana card. Now that doesn't seem great. However, it has Epic. Now, if you are not a seasoned Magic player, Epic doesn't sound like much. But it is what it says it is. It is Epic. It is the only spell you can cast after you've cast it. Like, you cannot cast any other spells afterwards. However, you get a copy of that spell every upkeep. They could have said draw phase. They could have said beginning of main phase. They said upkeep, and Obeka goes, oh great, I get to do this 10 times a turn. Like, yes, if Obeka dies, I no longer get that, but I can still, once a turn, cast a thing from your library that is probably stronger than my Obeka was anyway. If this goes down, I normally win. It is extremely bad normally, but in this deck, for some reason, it is a game ender, and I love it. Then we have Gate to the Ether. Basically braids, but for the top of your library. Then we have Dark Seal Reactor, another win con that just says, hey, at the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a counter on it. And if you have 20 or more counters on it, you win. Then we have Tamio's Journal that just says, hey, create a clue token at the beginning of your upkeep. And you may sacrifice 3 3 clues to get any card in your library to your hand. If Obeka hits for 3 every turn, I have a tutor. Also, Mechanized Production, target a clue. Replicating Ring, another way to win off of Mechanized Production. I have a few of these. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have you put a counter on Replicating Ring. If it has 8 or more counters, you remove all of the counters, and then you may create 8 copies of it that are just called Replicated Ring rather than Replicating Ring. Does the same thing without the counters. And then this is the last thing that cares about upkeep, but it does go into the next section quite nicely, which is Ring of Valkus, which says, hey, quick creature has haste. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a 1/1 counter on the creature if it's red. So, it cares about upkeeps. It makes things bigger on the upkeeps. Now, what section could we be going into there? Maybe the section of here's how to make your creatures hit harder. We have a Lava Spur Boots that is a +1/+0 and Ward 1 for equip 1 cost. Swiftfoot Boots, haste and hexproof. Sword of the Animus, +1/+1. Also, I get land. Trailblazer Boots. If you have any non-basic lands on board, I just hit you for free. Tenza Godos Maul. Creature gets +3/+3 if it's a Obeka, otherwise you have to read the rest of it. And if it's it just gets +1/+1, and if it's legendary, it also gets +2/+2, and it gets trample if it's red. Then we also have Cloud of Dominus, which basically says it has Shroud, but it also has +1/+1, +2/+2, and haste as well for 1 mana. Then we have Sword Coast Sailor that basically just says, hey, commanders have the ability of hitting the highest life point player for free. Now, if you're the highest life points, unfortunately you might need to try to get a tax refund from this thing, but outside of that, it's normally very good. You normally get the hit in. Now, talking of getting the hit in, this next card will not win you the game. Well, it could win you the game depending on your board state, but this will at least kill 1 player. So you swing with Obeka. You have all of these cards that make it so it's unblockable, right? You go, right, I want to hit Steve. Steve has been giving me the dirty eye all game. He hasn't been hit once. Right, I'm going to hit Steve, and then I'm going to play Hatred and take 20 life off of my own life and give Obeka +20. That guy is now dead. He is now speaking to the ghosts of people I have also killed with this deck. And also I get 20 upkeeps. Hatred is insanely good in this deck. It is 5 mana for a reason. Because it is an instant that does that. It's not, oh, I do that on the main phase because I think it's going to be unblockable and you can go, right, actually in response, death. I can bait out all of your deaths. I can swing with Obeka. You go, right, everything's fine. I could block, but you know what? 2 upkeeps don't sound too bad. And I go, no, it's going to be 35 upkeeps. Very good. Then we have Tema Battle Rage, which just gives a double strike. I know, it seems a bit lesser after what we just looked at. Then for sorceries, we have untap target creature. After this phase, conduct another additional battle phase. So you just go, oh, Obeka hit for 5. Let's do that again. Then we have Artful Dodge, which makes a creature unblockable for 1 mana. And it has flashback for 1 mana as well. So that's 2 turns. You can do that. Silent Arbiter makes Obeka unblockable because she has Menace. So Silent Arbiter just goes, hey, no more than 1 creature can block each turn. You have to block with 2 for Menace. It is unblockable now. Then we have slip through the back, which basically just gives her 1/1 and phases it out, so it's protection while also growing her to give you even more upkeeps. Then we have the counter spell of Reverse of Polarity, which just goes, hey, I can either make counter one of your spells, or I can make Obeka unblockable. Or I could switch to Power and Toughness of Obeka because I know she's going to hit anyway, so I could turn her into a 5/2 instead of a 2/5. Very good card for the deck. Then we just have the regular counter spell, and then for removal we will have Terminus and Chaos Warp. And then for triggering Obeka more, we have Helm of the Host, because you can get a copy of her that's non-legendary that also has haste. And a Strionic Resonator, because you can target her for her triggered ability of extra upkeeps. The deck does function like a well-oiled machine. Like, it really works when you get it to work. There are games where you sit there and go, oh, I can't do anything, because if I get Obeka out, she just instantly gets shot down. And those games kind of suck, but if you can get Obeka out safely, you can usually have a fun time. Then we have basically what I like to call ramp, in the form of Solemn Simulacrum, Commander Sphere, Soul Ring, Dimir Signet, and Is It Signet? There is no Arcane Signet, I'll be honest, I couldn't find a room. I might take out something like Dimir or Is It Signet for it, because it's a bit better, but at least for now, I'm like still 50-50 on that, to be fair. Then we go into the land. We're almost done. So we go into non-basics of the basic non-basics of Command Tower, Exotic Orchard. Then we have the fetch lands in Evolving Wilds, Maestro's Theatre to get us a life as well, a Terramorphic Expanse. Or if we want to pay a life, we can do Scalding Tarn, which can search for the Steam Vents. Then we have the tap lands. These are ones that give you life, which will be Jara Isle Refuge, an Akum Refuge, or a Swift Water Cliffs. Then we have the Burn lands in Shivan Reef and Sulphurous Springs. Well, more like Pain lands, I think they get called. Then we have the tap lands in the form of Choked Ancestry, Sulphur Falls, Restless Spire, which also has the ability of, if you play Is It, until end of turn it becomes a 2/1 creature that has first strike that's still a land, and whenever it attacks you get to scry one. We have the tapped scry land of Temple of Deceit as well. Then we have tap lands in the form of Crumbling Necropolis. We have a legendary land of Shizo Death's Storehouse, which basically allows you to pay a black and target it, tap it to make a legendary creature gain fear. So it makes Obeka once again very hard to deal with, and it is on a land, which makes it even more annoying. And then we go into the basics, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 islands. So if you didn't notice, there was a lot of blue in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mountains, because there was a decent bit of red too. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, there was a decent bit of black as well, but we are getting black off of stuff like some of the Storehouse is a mono black land, etc, etc. Plus also if you get a fetch land, you're basically getting that anyway. So tomatoes. That being said, that is the entire deck. This is the Obeka deck. Again, I've seen better Obeka builds, don't get me wrong, but I like this one. This one is fairly budget. It does what it wants to do, does it very well if Obeka doesn't die. The only change that I would add, if I had the money for it right now, is probably put a Cavern of Souls in here. So you could write Cavern of Souls, declare Ogre. Anytime I cast Obeka now, she will survive. Now I just need to get the extra upkeeps off of stuff like Paradise Haze, which will then give me all these you know? Or give it haste off of this ability or that ability. So there are ways for Obeka to stick it, and then when she sticks you can give her like haste, etc, and go, right, we're now going to get the upkeeps. So yeah, if you can Cavern of Souls as well, that would be good. But as always, I will be putting the deck list in the description to basically just say, hey, this is the, if I make any upgrades later on, like I do eventually get the Cavern of Souls, etc., that will be updated in the description every time I do. That being said, hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Ta-ta.